All systems go. Cleared for takeoff. What's up, everyone? Tyler Tamboline here, aka ToeTagginTambo, back for another edition of the First Look Show here on the SHIPIT Nation YouTube station. If you're just joining us for the first time, hit that like button, hit the subscribe. We get it started with that every week. We just hit 4,000 subscribers, gave away a 6-month membership. Now it's the drive for 5. So once we get to 5,000 subscribers, we're giving away an annual membership to ShipItNation.com. Joined here as always this week to discuss Week 10 with my guy, James, a.k.a. the Degenerate 75. James, my brother, what's going on?
I mean, just ready for another week of football. I think much like you, I wish golf would kind of just fuck off for just a little bit, just so we could catch our breath. Like, every once in a while in the swing season, it's okay, but when you're doing it every week, stacking NFL, and for you, NBA, what a life we live.
Man, I told you that in confidence, and you just go and bust it right out. No, I'm teasing you.
I could relate.
No, I'm kidding. It's definitely one of those things, right? Obviously, right now, we're wrapping up the swing season. We still got you covered. We got the Butterfield Bermuda Championship. Then we got the RSM Classic. We round it out. After that, it'll be on break until January. We get to enjoy the remainder of football. NBA gets more in full swing. It's already going now, though, so it's been a good start. But just to bring it up, like you said, it's always nice. But those guys, they got to get their love, too, right? These golfers that are playing right now, they're playing for a lot. So good for them. It's not always the best from the content schedule side of things, but we love doing this. We've got a passion for it. We're excited. Thank you guys all so much that have joined us here, whether it's your lunch break, afternoon break, whatever it might be. We appreciate it. Hit the like, subscribe to the channel. Want to remind you guys up front, I'm going to let James talk about it in a second, but if you go to shipitnation.com/dgen75 or go to dgen75.com and use promo code SHIPIT, you get 10% off. We've talked about this week after week, James, but I'll let you take the floor. Very nice complimentary piece to what we're doing. Like, for example, right now we've got the NBA that you brought up, projections, ownership, the Discord's popping off. Everybody's going through late news, injuries, late swap, all those factors amongst MMA, things like that. But then you've got college football side. You've got some other stuff coming. So talk to the people a little bit about dgen75.com.
I mean, the biggest thing I would tell you is I just shit on PGA, but I love it. Like, PGA is number one in my heart. We're still going full scale PGA. Check out the stream tomorrow at 7 o'clock if you want a fucking show you've never seen before. And just know that, like, I'm still doing showdown content behind my paywall for all of that. There's still golf going on for every slate. And yeah, college football right now, if you don't know about Maction, you go look up the term Maction. Okay, there's a 3-game slate tonight, and me and all my sweaty tryhards will be all up in there building lineups. We'll have projections for it, everything. Every time there's a 4-game slate, we have the Rosetta Stone. And, of course, coming in 2024, I'm going to be adding NASCAR, which I will be doing a stream every Sunday morning.
Yeah, it's going to be good. Another one that we don't have right now, so it'd be perfect. Again, even more crossover when you get to that. So definitely excited for that. Some good comments here. Nick always joins us. We appreciate it. He says he's going to take an hour break on grinding out Maction. He'll be right back to it. Our guy, Ben Mayhook, he won, I believe it was $100K. Just second place in the Millie. We reviewed it last time. Came in second in the $20 Millie Maker. Says more than 3 good NFL teams on a slate. Let's go. Yeah, last week it was sandwiched up. The Sunday slate had the good morning game in Germany, Miami and Kansas City. It had the great late game with Buffalo and Cincinnati. And then last night, me and Jeffrey were together on this. Boy, was I wrong about Zach Milfson. Yeah, it did not go well. I tried to run it back with him, see if we could get something out of him. We could not. So just one of those things, but that's how I like playing those slates. And in the end, you got to take your shots, and you only got to win one time for big money to make it all up. And that's how we play the game sometimes. So excited here. We do have a 10-game slate again, James. It's going to be back to that. We have another Germany game. It's Indy, New England this week. So we're not going to talk about that on this show, but just to note it, I don't know if this is the last week before the buys are up and the Germany stuff's all over and all that, but I'm pretty sure that's the case, and we'll get some bigger slates. But for now, back to another 10-gamer. It looks a little bit more appetizing than what we saw last week. Did you have any takeaways on last week, and then anything you want to start with before we get into the game by game?
I just have one big thought. For all of you that didn't see, the $20 millionaire maker was Utica, who's notoriously one of the best players in all of DFS and in NFL DFS, and his lineup won with a CJ Stroud triple stack. And I think that I just want to take a second. I think a lot of people will overreact to that and say, oh, see, triple stacks can get there. Well, absolutely, anything can get there, right? But I still don't think you want to overreact and start treating that like that's the norm and that triple stack should be a big part of your arsenal, because they're just so rare to get there, right? And you're thinking, well, he won $1 million with that. He knows what the fuck he's doing, all right? You may not know to that level and don't want to be that risky, especially if you're playing in a smaller field contest like single entries and 3 maxes. In those crazy millionaire makers, I'm more down to take a triple stack risk like that. But don't take that one example of a triple stack getting there and then start applying that to all of your lineups and think that it hitting is going to be the norm.
Yeah, I like that call out. I mean, I would disagree on one piece, which we don't always agree. I'll go back to it in a second. But just to say with Utica there, like, it's slate dependent. The thing about last week's slate is, if you didn't know, that's why a lot of people were focusing on, okay, Stroud with his cheap wide receivers, they're all popping up. Let's put them all together and get something from the other side. Same thing went with the Dak stacks, the Hurt stacks. If you just don't know what to do with all these backup quarterbacks, instead of trying to figure them all out, it is optional to just put something like that in. That can always work in a large field. But usually, this is just the advice I give, but I think this is an interesting topic, because in a higher dollar, smaller field, or just any smaller field for that matter, I actually like overstacking it, because you need less to go your way. If you get the game that pops up, you could just have the right pieces, and then you see yourself blow the field out by a bunch. Usually it's the opposite. In a large field tournament like the $20 with 176,000 people, one of the Dell, Brown, and Schultz? One of those 3 guys is going to...
Didn't even have Nico. That was what was crazy. Like, he was, the perceived number 1 receiver.
And I think he was like wide receiver 12 still. So you almost could have found a way to get there. But of note, I'm saying usually in the largest fields, what ends up happening is somebody beats Schultz or somebody beats Brown, and they just don't all get there, versus you can get away with more in the smaller fields. I actually like the overstack usually more in that, but I think in this case of Utica and many others that ran it, it was pretty slate dependent based on the fact that that's where the values lied, and they were affordable. And when you went that stack, you were able to get 3 studs, which there was only like maybe 5 or 6 quote unquote studs to pick.
So do you run triple stacks very often?
I usually do it if I'm doing it in like those, for example, the King of the Beach queues to get in. They were $110 buy-in with like 100 people. I'd be more likely to run that in there, because I don't need to be perfect like the $20 Millie Maker. So if Noah Brown doesn't come, let's say Noah Brown didn't come through this Sunday and he only got he got away with it in the $20 Millie Maker with a 6.2, whatever it was for Bijan. Mm-hmm. That would definitely get away with it in something with 110 people in it. So like you could get away with 2 or 3 of those and maybe still get there. So I would have no problem doing it in those fields, because again, also most people won't do that in the higher dollar, smaller field, because they want to protect their money, right? They're I can't go that far with it. I want to protect it and stay behind. I go more aggressive in that, where you can get away with more mistakes being made.
Let's agree to one point, though. Not all quarterbacks are viable for triple stacks. It's got to be quarterbacks that are going to probably set back there and are more pocket passer guys, right? Like I would never probably triple stack Jalen Hurts, right? Like AJ Brown, Devontae Smith, and Dallas Goedert. For him to get all 3 of those guys there, it's going to be an astronomical game, especially when you factor in that he's going to nerf some of those passing yards with his legs. Whereas a guy like CJ Stroud is a dude that can get it there, because he will throw the ball 40 times a game and doesn't nerf a lot of his passing yards by running around.
100%. And it goes in reverse too. Like the opposite side of that argument is when people say like, oh, I always double stack my quarterback, just because you don't have to double stack a Josh Allen. You don't have to double stack a Hurts, but Hurts right now, maybe you should, because the guy never seems to run still. But just saying in general, these types of quarterbacks, you don't have like Lamar. You can just play Lamar Zay or Lamar Andrews or Lamar Odell.
When I played Jaron Hall this week, I was only single stacking him because I knew he offered a little bit of rushing upside, and with him being so cheap, even if he just has a solid game and gets me 15 to 20 points, and all of that goes to Hawkinson or all of that goes to Addison, that can be enough to get me there. So whenever there's a running quarterback or a really punty quarterback, I really don't mind leaning on single stacks.
Yeah, Utica Max he was on a podcast, a show with Levitan from ETR, and he said he gets about $1 million down most Sundays during NFL. So he's getting the action. I mean, this guy's playing, he's playing 8 figures a year in volume, but that doesn't excuse what it is. To me, he's the best DFS player in the world. It's all sports. It's everything. He's won it. That's like his 8th Millie Maker in the last year and a half or something. Like the guy's just on top of his game. He'll be at King of the Beach. So I've met him a few times at these events. Really good guy, fun to hang out with, party with. He'll be down there. Excited to see him, but I think by far best player in the world. And then Jerry Matt says, Dome game rules again, recurring theme. Yeah, that you called that out, I think, last time. James, you've been talking about this all season. Dome. That's another thing. That's another thing you could do, right? On these smaller slates, like 10 games, you say, listen, everyone can try and make this, that, and the other work. but I'm just going to focus on the spots that we've seen points put up, and obviously dome games are a good start. You talk about this, the showdown golf guy. I love showdown golf with you. It's a sport and a game within the DFS realm that we both love, and we use weather to our advantage all the time. You do the same thing in the NFL streets, so definitely like that. King of the Beach is in Miami, South Beach, Miami, Florida for this one. So excited. It was in Fort Lauderdale 2 years ago. This trophy, second place, is from the Fort Lauderdale one in 2021. So let's go to this slate. Anything up front stand out to you? Obviously, our guy earlier mentioned that we've actually got some good teams on this slate, but anything you want to talk about first, and then we'll get into Green Bay, Pittsburgh, just to start it off.
Yeah, not really. Just the big guy loves dome, and there's plenty of dome games this week.
All right, we saved that one for the ding bang. What's the drum roll? There we go.
Is there some double meaning there? I don't get it. All right.
No, keep it rolling. We'll go. Let's go with Green Bay, Pittsburgh. Let's start it off and talk about this one. Your favorite guy to talk about, Najee Harris, is in this one, and then some of the other guys to go with it. But give me your thoughts on this game. It's got a 38 total. Pittsburgh favored by 3 at home as we speak right now.
Yeah, hold on. What's Pittsburgh's defense? Because that's going to go ahead and be my favorite play on the slate. Pittsburgh, 3,800. Fuck. Okay, so
$4,200 defenses got there last week.
Yeah, I have a rule. I don't pay over $3,200 for defense. I just don't like what it ever does to my teams, and I truly just believe that defenses are random. I just bought into that a long time ago and promised myself to stick with it. This game, Green Bay's dusty. I mean, they're just not good, and I want to believe. I like pieces of their team. I like, Christian Watson. I like Musgrave. I like some of these dudes, but they're just not good. And if you're not good, going to Pittsburgh, which I'm going to assume is probably not going to be the best weather at Pittsburgh, it's not a place you go get it figured out. It's not a get-right game. So for me, this is going to be a hard fade. Running it back from the Steelers, I never mind their wide receivers. Deontay at 5,400 with the volume he's getting, and George Pickens with his upside at 5,100 would probably be the two pieces I would be most interested in and kind of grabbing as a one-off.
Yeah, one thing of note, and the chat said it, no way Najee is 4.9K. They finally made Warren $100 more, which is it's whatever. We've talked about this. We agree. Fine. Warren's better. But what's funny is it's after the game where Najee got 16 carries, went for 69 on the ground and a touchdown, got himself 4 targets, 4, 5, and 3 in the last 3 games. So 4.9K for Najee. This is the spot you beat Green Bay on the ground, and it's not at Lambeau. It's in Pittsburgh. So at least something to be said. They are favored there. Not my favorite play right now, but just to note it early on. Anything else in that one? If not, we can take it to the first dome game on the schedule, and the legend of Joshua Dobbs. Guy comes in the game, Hall gets put out, he comes right in, takes it down. I know it was Atlanta, nothing too special, but hey, just to go back to it, I mean, he obviously got the job done. He's 5,500. This total is 41. The Saints are favored on the road by 2.5 as we do this on a Tuesday.
My first take is Jaren Hall. That guy, literally on the play before he dies, he has a wide open Hawkinson 3 yards in front of him, overthrows him. Then on the next play, runs in for a touchdown and just gets absolutely crushed at the goal line and dies on that play and then is out. And the worst part is he was actually off to a pretty good start. Like, he looked like a functional NFL quarterback who could run and pass a little bit at 4,800. I was actually thinking, I am so smart. Look at me. And then he died. So that's disappointing. I assume there's no chance he'll be back, as the concussion protocol, I believe, usually lasts 10 days. So, Joshua Dobbs, anytime Minnesota is in a game, I always just think sneaky shootout. That's what I always think. And I think Dobbs is a good enough quarterback with enough weapons that he could push this game. And I really like the Saints run backs, right? Kamara, after like a little flop lag last week. Olave is a guy that I'm telling you, he's going to have a 35-point game soon. And I'm just going to play him till he gets there. And so this is one that, like, I'm pretty open to, because when you start your stacks with Dobbs, that's pretty affordable. And I like the Saints run backs, and it's in the dome.
Yeah, one note for sure is that Dobbs is, I think, going to be in no matter what. Anyway, they traded for him. They told him it was going to be a week till he got in, but he had to go in because of the situational and everything that happened. So, again, that's going to be fine. But, I mean, I don't expect the same result out of him. I want to see how Olave finished, because it's kind of funny. I'm not sure how, like, if you were playing DFS as heavily back when this happened, but do you remember the year Will Fuller played for the Texans? Yep. Deshaun Watson was the quarterback. It took either 5 or 6 weeks. Everyone played him every week, and they just kept saying, it's going to happen. It's going to happen. So we buried all our money for 4 or 5 weeks, and then it was week 6. He finally goes out and gets like 35 or 45 fantasy points, and everyone's like, see, I told you. It's like, but you have 5 weeks of losses to pile into that. So got to think of it from that perspective, but Olave is taking a lot longer for this.
I'm pot stuck at this point. I'm pot stuck. I got to just keep calling. I got to call. I know I'm beat, but I got to call.
Yeah, well, it's still a fair spot. I mean, definitely the place to play him. This is a good one. He's 6,400. You mentioned it. There was a little bit of flop leg. I don't think Carr ended up doing much last week because Taysom Hill obviously came in, and that was the same for. He still got 16.7 though. So 34 attempts, couple of touchdowns. If you wanted to stack this one up, I wouldn't hate it. It's just, where do you go on the Minnesota side is the tough one to think about here. Maybe go back to Hawkinson. He's down to 5,000 now.
Yeah.
Could you see using some Hawkinson here? He got 12 targets last week, 9, 12, 8. I mean, any quarterback that's been in there is using Hawkinson. I don't completely hate it.
Yeah, no, Hawkinson would definitely be my number one guy. He's just such a target monster that in a year that the tight end is down, Hawkinson is not. Like, he is getting the targets and the volume, and he gets the red zone looks. He's everything I want in a tight end. At $5,000, he's more than affordable this week.
Yeah, I didn't see the snap update on it, but it has been down a little bit. Last week was just really bad for him. Obviously, Taysom came in. Did you have any more Taysom takes, or do you want to mention anything on him? He is 5,100 now at the tight end position over on DraftKings.
I got a pretty hot take on him. I had Derek Carr stacks, and they were off to a really good start, and he came in and screwed them all up. So fuck him. That's my take on him.
Yeah, it's really bad. It sucks, but man, they're using him a lot. And it's 3 games in a row now where, 17, 22, 21, not something I like to do, but just to say it's just something to keep in mind if you're looking at some of the other stuff there. Obviously, you can just play one-offs as well if you wanted, right? You could just play Olave, but again, if you think Olave is going to pop off for the 35-point game, I would want it attached to Derek Carr because it's likely to come from him. If all of a sudden Taysom comes in and is sneaking those touchdowns too, it's going to be really tilting. We got a big game up next year. This is, I think, the second highest total on the slate. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, it looks like Detroit and the Chargers has a higher total, but Houston, Cincinnati favored by almost a touchdown at home and a 48-point total in this one. So give me your thoughts on this. Can you see going back to Stroud, Cincinnati side? What are you doing with this one? And big news, we got to wait and see, but it sounds like we could be without Jamar Chase. It's early in the week again, but it said something about his back and it being sore and all that stuff. And we knew that, but it was kind of his comment he made around, we'll see, I'm just going to get healthy and cheer for these guys in the meantime or whatever. It's like, oh, maybe he's taking some time off or thinking he's going to need some time off.
So this game's going to obviously be very chalky. It'll probably be one of the 2 chalkiest games as far as cumulative ownership goes. And for games like that, my rule generally this year has been not to fade them, but to also not be overweight. Just go in and grab a strategic piece or 2, preferably a lower owned piece that if it does well, it will kind of offset everybody else. Like, for instance, if everybody wants to play Burrow in the passing attack, maybe I go grab Joe Mixon or something like that, right, to try to offset that. So that's what I'll do. But I will tell you, weirdly enough, if Jamar Chase is out, a Joe Burrow stack shoots way up on my list of ones that I like. I love whenever good quarterbacks are without one of their big usage monsters because they are good enough to overcome that and distribute that usage elsewhere. And all those other guys that are still left are now at tremendous values. So, if Chase is out, give me all the Joe Burrow stacks.
Yeah, also, too, people hate T. Higgins for some reason. But, again, another good week last week. But even last year, back to the original stuff, when there was plenty of games where it was everyone's on Chase. We know how good he is, but there was a 20, a 30, a 27, a 27. There's a bunch of good games that T. Higgins has put up. He's obviously fine. This is a spot, though, I want to talk about because you mentioned it. So, first of all, you can definitely run on Houston. Just want to go here for a second. Somebody said this. It was here. So, since it's the 10-game slate, we have better, quote-unquote, better teams compared to everyone saying last week was a, quote-unquote, gross week. Is there a narrative to play the gross games this week and not the high flyers? Here's what I'll say. It goes back to what James mentioned off the top. Just to reiterate it, it happens in showdown. If a 5-1 smashes on Sunday Night Football, on Monday Night Football, people talk themselves into 5-1s because they just saw it win the night before. Oh, that's going to happen again. I could easily see that here, and they make that a thing. This game literally includes Stroud and the stack that just went off and broke the slate in those humongous game stacks that you talked about from last week. So no matter how you shake it out, this game is going to get overstacked. And I know it's a great spot and everything like this, but we have other 41s inside domes. 45.5, 48.5, another dome game with a 43. We've got a 46 in the afternoon. There is other spots this week. So it doesn't mean I'm not playing this. I'm probably going to have stacks in here. I'm saying, though, just remember that when you're building out, the people are going to be heavier on this. And the reason I brought that up is just because, look, Mixon in the defense as at home as a counter going off against the other side. BMAC, play Mixon. It's definitely a thing where you can get exposure to this game in different ways and do it that way and hope that becomes a thing, because I think there is other spots that you can go here. You don't have to, because obviously we could sit here all day. We don't need to talk about it, but Joe Burrow, if Chase is out, it gets even easier. You get it, like James said, you get a tighter target tree. So now it's just Higgins, Boyd, and probably Irv Smith or maybe Irwin. Pick your choice. Maybe at most one of those two or something, and then you can easily run it back with all the Houston options. So I'm not saying it's not a good spot to stack. I'm saying, again, thinking about your tournaments, and let's say like a single entry. You know, a lot of people out here play a single entry every week of whether it's $100 or $20, $50, doesn't matter the price. This will be over-owned in your single entries because it's all the stuff that looks good on paper in the total, and it just went off the week before with Houston stacks that you can get access to the game in different ways. I think mixing is a great way to do it. So I love that call out from the chat. Anything else on that one, James? If not, you can move us on to the AFC North battle, Cleveland and Baltimore.
Let's see. Cleveland and Baltimore. Man, what a low total that one is. Goodness gracious. Is that the lowest total I've seen all year? Is that 37.5? That's got to be tied for the lowest I've seen all year.
Last week was close. I think it was a 36 last week, but it's very close.
Okay, what is this? Big Ten football? Yeah, this is one. I mean, this just reeks of a sloggy game. Tell me the Ravens defense is affordable. Nope, 4,000. All right, so
Cleveland is affordable for what they have been.
They are. I mean, for $3,000 in this game, I'm okay with it. Lamar, Lamar can throw a. He's not afraid of taking a little fumble and letting the other team take it to the house. Initially, just no one jumps off. I still think Jerome Ford is good. I think he's a good football player. At 5,300, he's priced appropriately. But man, Kareem Hunt he's just a fantasy football destroyer of souls. He just gets enough action to really kill the upside of Jerome Ford, and so that makes me not like him. As far as Baltimore, most of them are overpriced for a game that's going to be this sloggy. No way I'm getting to Mark Andrews at 6,900, and I'm never paying for 8,000 for Lamar in a sloggy ass game. You just get, he could definitely still get there, but what are the chances he's going to get there at $8,000? If I'm going to take a risky quarterback, I'd rather take a risky quarterback at 4,900.
Yeah, and another note, I got away with this one last week. The King of the Beach entry that did get through for me was a Watson lineup. Yep. It had Amari Cooper, who, first of all, it literally bounced off a dude's head that landed in his hand, so that was pretty lucky there. And then it also had Njoku, who got there. Now, I would have won this battle either way because I did have the Cleveland defense as well. I just ran an onslaught. Again, smaller field, just need a top safe. I ran the onslaught, and Njoku got the touchdown after the defense could have. But I will say, I watched it because this was a heavy piece for me and it was my best lineup. So I watched the whole game on one of the TVs, had red zone on another. But watching this game, something looks severely wrong with Watson still in this shoulder. He's doing this the whole game. He's lifting his arm up and down. It's not like anyone's going to him here anyway, so I'm not going to spend too much time on this. I just will say it won't surprise me at all if Baltimore just crushes them as much as Cleveland's been a great defense, and that's what's going to keep them in the game. That might be what keeps it close. It's a divisional game. I'm just saying, I just could see it where Baltimore just pounds away on Deshaun. It's really bad, man. And the passes he's making are all short passes only and just slide passes and side passes. I don't know what's wrong with this guy. The chat's going to make the massage jokes, of course, but it definitely does not look like he's healed. I'll at least say that. So
you shouldn't make jokes about Deshaun. His nickname is Charmin because he's ultra soft. That's the only joke you need to make about Deshaun. By the way, are 75 people qualified? So 75 people go to the King of the Beach? Is that right?
Well, some people have multiple seats. Some people have multiple seats.
Yeah, but 75 spots is a lot. Normally, isn't it like 30 or 40 at those things?
No, not for this one. It used to be 50, and then 3 years ago, they bumped it to 70. They didn't have one the year of COVID. And then 2021 since has been 75 out of 250 moves on. And you can get as many as 5 seats through.
Man, that's pretty good. 75, that's a real chance of making it. So basically you had a 1 in 3 chance of making it, right? If you have one lineup.
Yeah, it was a 30%, the top 30% that had to get through. Yep.
Yeah, that's pretty good. That's pretty good.
So, the chat already asked about this next one. We're going here, but how much is too much? We're going to Tennessee and Tampa Bay, my friend. Talk me through this one.
I see. Oh, dude, Levi's is pretty good. I know he's a big jeans guy. I know his name's Levis. Chill the fuck out, people. But this guy, he's an actual good quarterback. And let's face it, Baker is kind of surprising me this year. I always shit on him, but he's not a good fantasy quarterback. But he honestly, they move the ball a little bit. I think the one that's most interesting to me and the one that tilted my balls the most is that I faded Rachaad White this last week. That guy's just completely involved in everything that Tampa Bay does. I don't care that Tennessee's good at stopping the run. Rachaad White is catching the ball out of the backfield. He gets goal line carries, and I can't believe I'm saying this. Tampa Bay actually has a pretty damn functional offense. So he's instantly the one I want to get to. I'm not going to let the Tennessee has a good run defense scare me off Rachaad White.
Yeah, the mayonnaise man. Do you ever put the mayonnaise in the coffee? This guy is off the page, but I don't hate it. And one thing that's interesting here is this game only has a 38-point total. If I was betting early right now, I would bet the over. on this game. And I think what's funny is we talked earlier about the Houston-Cincinnati game, and it popped off, and it's because of Stroud and all this. I get it, and Stroud's obviously really good. But I'm saying you're getting Cincy on the other side to make it move. But this is the type of game where if it gets going early, if it doesn't, your bet's in trouble. But I'm just saying from a DFS perspective, you can do it that way. Or because I don't think anyone's going to be overstacking this game as much as the Cincy Houston one, at least early. But I'm saying it is if these guys pick up the pace early on, that's going to really move the needle on this one. And then you could start seeing if Hopkins gets in the box once or twice. Again, last time was 3 times. If Mike Evans can get in the box. These are the matchups where you beat these teams, like quarterbacks again and wide receivers, tight ends, all against Tampa Bay. Use just basic DVP rankings. You could see that, but you could watch the game, see it anyway in the rest of the stats. And then on top of it, same thing the other side. Really could see Mike Evans get going here at 7,200. So don't hate this spot, actually. Have
you heard anything on Treylon Burks? Because if he's out and you basically, who's he going to throw the ball to? It's basically going to be Hopkins, Westbrook-Ikhine, and Shig, right? So maybe Levi stacks might be a thing this week, and you can run it back with Evans, Godwin, and Rachaad White if you think this game could sneaky shoot out, which no one is going to have this on the shootout radar.
Yeah, I haven't heard the news, but I mean, the guy was carted off. We did get a thumbs up, thankfully. It was okay, but did not look good, so I don't expect him to play, to be honest.
Yeah. And he's also not a guy noted for his toughness.
Yeah, well, I mean, exactly. He's had a rough run as far as the injuries goes, which sucks. But just in general, that would make it more enticing as well. Like you said, I still think though, just going back to it, like I would just stick with Hopkins. He likes him. He can find his way around. He gets open. The targets are there. Even like the week before, he only had less targets when he got those 3 touchdowns, but last week was 11 targets, just only caught 4 balls for 60. So can easily go back there. Hopkins is still only 6,000. So for example, Levis, Hopkins, Chig stack is like 14,300. Like it's nothing. And then you just run it back with an Evans or whoever you want on the other side. So do what you want with that. I just think it over 38 seems pretty good. We'll see where the number ends up by the end of the week. Let's move on. Let's go to this next one. It's the last of the morning games, San Francisco and Jacksonville. 45.5 point total, close spread. 3.5, the 49ers favored on the road.
Yeah, I think that, I mean, first of all, this is a great game. I think I've never done any research into this, but just like my perception of people is that whenever there is a good game with good teams, they naturally want to play guys in their fantasy lineup in that because they're already going to be watching that game and they want to cheer on their guys that they're watching in that game. So I think you might just see a little bit more inflated ownership on this game. Once again, I have no evidence to back that up, but I think people underestimate just how many normal dudes out there just want to have a guy to cheer for while they're watching the game that they're interested in, right? To me, Brock Purdy is the one that really stands out. I'm hearing Debo's likely to be back this week. With Debo being back, Brock Purdy is a much better quarterback when he has Debo. He's not the easiest guy to stack because they do spread it around pretty evenly between Ayuk and Kittle and Debo and, of course, Christian McCaffrey. But at 5,700 with a team with a 24.5 point implied total, that's pretty interesting.
Yeah, I like this spot too. Somebody said it here, and I don't. Again, always a Tuesday. We say stuff. It's the complete opposite when you get to the weekend, but that's why you and I both do content throughout the week to keep it updated and go through it again. It's a first look, so we don't know how things will actually shake out. It's just our first thoughts, and I definitely think to that point, if it's not Houston, Cincy, I think people are talking about Detroit and the Chargers. This one is just slightly under both of them. I know Washington, Seattle could be interesting later too when we get there, but just to say it, like this is a spot. San Francisco and Jacksonville, and you look at it, and there's a lot of pieces in this game. The downfall is some of them are expensive, but I think you can still get away with it too, right? Let me just see real quick here on San Francisco side of things. Like Ridley is 5,600, Christian Kirk is 6,000. These prices are affordable. That's a spot that you can get San Francisco. And then you go to the Jacksonville side, just looking at some early stuff, obviously every position against them. So when you have something like where it's an every position can get there, that's kind of the Houston factor, why Cincinnati looks so good against Houston. Remember, that means if they get there, the game is speeding up. If that happens and you get a little bit of a back and forth, that's how you create a shootout and get it out of that. So I actually don't hate it. And yeah, Scary Creation says the Jacksonville D 2,400. I'm not sure if that will pick up steam or not, but I did look at that just a second ago because I was looking at San Francisco side and they are 3,600. So yeah, I like the $2,400 call if you want to go that way. Caddy says, did you see if you had bet a running bet on CMC? Yes, I did see that. Nobody does that. It's just a content marketing thing. Like it's the same thing. You bet on, every single time and just keep rolling it over. Here's the thing. People want their money, so they don't roll it over. They just take it out and bet it on other stupid shit. So you could say it about a lot of different things if you go through it. Not as good as that one, but just to say it, it's just a marketing thing to get clicks. Nobody's doing that. That's why you don't see any tickets with that bet. Maybe one is out there. Who knows? Anything else in this game that you want to talk about? If not, let's move to the highest total on the slate as of right now is Detroit and the Chargers.
I mean, here's my first thought. Justin Herbert's broken. Like, the guy ain't right. I've been saying it since like week 3. I'm like, something is off with this guy. Yes, I know he had and of course I'm spiking the football because he just had the rough game against the Jets, but like, that's just indicative of who he's been all year. And the worst part about that is when he's down, it really kills the upside of all the great peripheral pieces he has, like Keenan Allen, like Austin Eckler, hell, even Gerald Everett's like a ghost now, right? So I just worry about him. Now, I will agree that Detroit is notorious. Over the past 2 seasons, I can't think of any team that gets in more shootout games than Detroit. So if there's ever a team you can get it figured out against, maybe it will be them. It is at home. It is in a dome. It has a nice total. But man, if I'm playing one side of this game, I'm probably playing the Lions because I just trust the Lions to move the ball way more than I do the Chargers right now.
Yeah, I was going to just say that too. It's like Goff is like a capable Zach Wilson.
Yeah.
So it's like, all right, sweet. We'll take that because now you've got better weapons. A guy that can seemingly get him the ball. They just match up perfectly across the board. And you can mix in all these guys. Like you can mix in Jahmyr Gibbs. You can play the wide receivers. You can get Sam Laporta, who's looked awesome this season. He's 5,700, but it's still a fine spot. So I think all these guys on that side are playable there. And then on the other side, I just don't know what to do. Like Eckler, Keenan Allen, what's your thoughts on the studs on the Chargers side? If you were playing a run back, where would your first inclination be to go?
Problem is those guys are so expensive, right? I mean, like Eckler's 8,400, Keenan's 8,800. My God! And like for you to deliver on that, you have to have a quarterback who's playing well, right? Like you never see Cooper Kupp get there or Tyreek Hill get there whenever they don't have quarterbacks who are playing well. You have to have a guy that gets you the ball where you need it. And the way that Herbert's playing right now, there's no way I'm paying $8,800 for Keenan Allen. I don't care what the environment is. And then Austin Eckler is also a guy who is dependent on Justin Herbert being successful. If Justin Herbert's not completing passes down the field, then that really cuts off what makes Austin Eckler so good, is getting him the ball in space or against less condensed boxes. And it's killing his value that Herbert is being so inefficient. And we are past the point of it just being a blip on the radar. To me, it seems like a trend.
Yeah, a couple good points here too. One, yes, Montgomery is supposed to be coming back. We'll have to see how that plays out as the week goes on. But that was all the articles and thoughts and everything are on them getting reinforcements back, including David Montgomery. He'd already missed a few weeks there, so just keep that in mind. And then Doug brings up a good point. Goff on the road, could that suppress ownership? I don't know as much as it's that, but also the price, $6,400. It's like one of those like Goldilocks things. Like there's too hot, too cold, but he's right there in the middle. I don't know if people will see it that way or they'll look for the cheaper options or the pay up options. So don't hate it. And again, it's more to me about when people like, I think people like Cincy Houston. You could talk about a couple other spots, and this would be one of them. But man, there is opportunity here. And if you want to stack this side up, I wouldn't hate it. I like it more on the Lions side, just like James had mentioned as well. 3 more games to go. If you guys are just joining us, do us a favor. Almost 110 watching. Smash the like button, but definitely subscribe to the channel. Like I said, when we get to 5,000 subscribers, we'll be giving away an annual membership on the Thursday Night Football Showdown show this week. We go right after Degenerate 75 on his channel, and we will be giving away 5 monthly memberships to ShipItNation.com. So pretty huge over there. If you guys want to get in before that, you can go to ShipItNation.com, use promo code DGEN75. It gets you 10% off any of the options we have over there. So check that out and use it there. Third last game, James, we've got Atlanta, Arizona. How's Bijan sound at $6,000?
Dude, all year I've been saying that guy's a bust. Maybe it's just because he went to Texas and I think he sucks. But even at best ball, like I was nuking his rankings versus where everybody else had him. I was like, you guys are overreacting to this dude. Here's what I'll tell you. Here's my controversial take. I like this game more than I like the Chargers and the Lions game, right? Because I think that this game has the ability to have a nice up-paced game where both teams score. But more importantly, is I can do it so much more cheaply, right? Like a Taylor Heineke stack is infinitely cheaper than a Justin Herbert stack. And I think that maybe like 30 to 40% of the time he's going to outscore a Justin Herbert stack. So I'm getting discounted ownership. I'm getting a discounted price, which allows me to go get other studs. And I'm like I feel like I still have some upside with it. So to me, this game is pretty interesting to me. Any chance that Drake London's going to be back this week? That would be a really important one to me because I feel like he needs an alpha receiver to throw the ball to. If he's back, I really like it.
Yeah, we're going to see on that one, but bigger news is that it's supposedly Kyler week, right? We're hoping to get him. So,
oh yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah, that now we're really fucking talking. I forgot about Kyler being
that
back.
is making it very interesting because that's the spot, right? But again, how many people are going to feel comfortable going with like Kyler, Marquise Brown, and then using Bijan on the other side? Like that could just be nuts, right? And just I don't know if that's going to happen. So we'll see. Also, I think James Conner is back to practice. So we're just waiting to see. This game could end up getting much better as the week goes on. Another one that you might want to hit the over early on. Like you want to parlay 2 overs. Let's go the Tennessee game and go with this game as well. It's at 42.5 right now. If all these players get back into the mix, there's definitely opportunity here for both sides. We just saw a 52 out of the last game with Minnesota. It might have been more. I thought it was 52 points. So it's just crazy that, you can see these numbers now. It seems low to me, but maybe it'll change. We'll see. I think there's a lot of options, though, within this game that you can go with. Obviously, Atlanta, pretty bad in general, but you pull up Arizona, and they're bad against pretty much every position. Also, Trey McBride, only 3,500 in this one. So, again, just continue to go to him. I don't know what his ownership ended up getting last week at 3,700, but I think just in general, you could still roll him. It was only 5 targets last week, but 5 targets at 3,500 and the potential for more, especially if we think this game could go back and forth. I don't hate him either. He would make your stacks work in a lot of different ways. If Drake London's back,
I have one take on Kyler Murray. I won't play Kyler this week, but if he is playing, I give a big boost to guys like Marquise Brown, Trey McBride, and Michael Wilson. I do think that they will benefit from having a better quarterback. I just don't want to play Kyler because I don't think he's going to be the electric player quite yet that he used to be, but I do think that he can throw the forward pass a lot better than Clayton Tune can. So that's why I would really like a Falcons stack and then run it back with Arizona, because I do feel like Kyler will make their offense better, but I still don't trust him to be the electric guy that can go put up 35 points running around like a wild man.
Yeah, I like that call too. And of note also, Michael Wilson, who missed last week, it didn't really give a significant bump to Rondale Moore. But like you said, if you get Kyler back, I think Marquise Brown, Trey McBride just naturally get that boost. And I don't know. We'll see where I end up on that one. But what's Kyler's price? I didn't see it up here. Just was one I was looking for.
Kyler's 5,900.
5,900. So it might suck some people in at that price. Maybe we'll see where I get to by the end of the week. But at 5,900, that Best Buy pricing, you never know, right? It's just right there. So when you stack them up with those guys, like if you look here, Marquise Brown is 5,200. We just talked about Trey McBride being 3,500. That's another cheap stack there that you could just put them all together. It's going to be sick. I don't think anyone's going to do it. You put those 3 together with Bijan on the other side, flop leg, and you get the game in the back and forth. That could be incredible for tournaments. So we'll have to wait and see. Second last game, this still has almost a 46-point total, is Washington at Seattle. Seattle favored by almost a touchdown at home. What are you doing with this one?
Did you see that stat that Sam Howell is on pace to break the record for most, dropbacks or passing attempts in a season? Absolutely, that's just insane that he has that much volume. And the thing is he has very capable receivers, right? Like Dotson really finally seems to be having a pulse now. We know Terry McLaurin's good. Hell, even Jamison Crowder looks solid, filling in for Curtis Samuel. There's a lot to like about this. Let me check the weather real quick, because anytime a game is in Seattle in the afternoon in November, I'm seeing 75% chance of rain in that game up in Seattle, which is never great because rain can really can negatively impact scoring. But if things clear up, this is I feel like this would be a great afternoon game, shootout game that will probably be more highly owned than Atlanta, Arizona, but probably much lower owned than the Chargers and the Lions. I feel like a lot of these guys on the Seattle side are really getting priced down for a team that has a 26-point total. So I think I can get there. I don't know. What's the running back situation? What's going on with Walker and Charbonnet? Do we just never trust Seattle's running backs?
Yeah, it's tough to do so. I know that people were talking about Charbonnet a bunch last week. I'm just going to look it up now. 9 carries for Walker with a couple
16 yards.
Yeah, he didn't do anything with it. I was trying to see some of the usage, and then you go look up Charbonnet and what did we get?
But they got in a really bad script last week, right? They got epically behind, and we're just that was a real weird game. I wouldn't draw too many conclusions about what's going on with the running back rotation based on that ass kicking.
The Ravens, that's what's going on. The Ravens are putting everybody down right now, just crushing. So we'll see what happens against Cleveland this week. They meet a real defense, but we'll see what happens there. At least they're at home. But just in general, Charbonnet didn't get much out of it either. We will wait on the weather, like you said, but I like the call on Dotson, 5K. man, he's getting an uptick big time. I know last week was against the Patriots, and Patriots typically take out number ones. I want to look up McLaurin's targets real quick. He still got 7, caught 5 balls for 73. I guess it could have been worse. That's for sure. We'll wait on Samuel. Samuel was a foot injury heading into last week, so definitely something to watch there to see if he comes back. But Howell getting the ball out quicker. Talked about that last week. I played him on one of my teams as well that almost got there for a second team into King of the Beach, and it was close. But, man, he just throws it so much, like you said. So interesting note on that. We're making good time, my friend. So while everybody takes that 2 seconds to hit the free like button, subscribe to the channel, we can look this up. What's your bet on this, though? Who's taller between Kyler Murray and Brian Harmon?
I don't know, but I will bet money neither of them are allowed to ride roller coasters at most theme parks. I can confirm that. I would say that. If I would bet Kyler's, what is he, like probably 5, he says he's 5'9", so he's probably like 5'7.5". Brian Harmon's probably what, 4'7" or something. So I guess Kyler's taller.
It's pretty close, man. 5'9" and 5'7". So Kyler's taller, to answer your question.
That's what they put on there. If you that's like, you know how dudes be lying about their height, right?
Yeah,
like every dude I've ever met,
sure
6 foot tall. My dick, you're 6 foot tall.
Harmon won the major, and now there's newer publications showing that he's a little taller. So he's feeling good after getting the major, right? So now he shows up a little bit taller on some of the new stuff than he used to be. So who knows? Maybe it's the inserts, but definitely a spot just to look up, have some fun with it. Ravens 18-1 versus NFC teams with Lamar. Yeah, that was the stat last week. He was 17-1 straight up, goes to 18-1 and just destroys them. Unfortunately, I know we're off that game now, but it does not convert, or did not convert for Lamar. I mean, it was all rushing touchdowns, so he got nothing out of it. He had 12 points, took him out of the game for Tyler Huntley, who immediately throws a touchdown. So the way it goes, shout out to our guy Jay Steele. He got a new pick on there too. That's the man, Jay Steele. He was disappointed. He's a member at SHIPIT Nation as well, and he said this morning that I think he won a contest with you, and he was in. And obviously, I'm not sure if you saw DraftKings drop both the defenses back down to they hate the defense as much as we do. They drop them back down to like their regular 10 points or whatever.
Yeah, we were way up there because he won the contest yesterday to build a lineup with me, and we skyrocketed up there whenever they screwed up the points, and then we came back down to reality.
Okay. I wanted to show this because if you go over to shipitnation.com where I'm looking at the DVP rankings right now, but if you guys want to become a member, you can use the promo code DGEN75, DEGEN75. You go to Join the Nation, it gets you 10% off. But Jim can vouch for us. I said, James.
Oh, he's on there.
Jim can vouch for us. He's right here. See, I told you the picture matches up. Boom. The double Jim on the screen. Shout out to Jim, Jay Sizzle. He got a whole video on there. He's speaking King of the Beach. This man's living on the beach, doing the testimonial. You can see here, Randy Jackson won $50K in MLB. We had Keith Craps, our guy, won the Fantasy Golf World Championship live final. See, just a lot of good wins throughout. We haven't even updated it for all the latest with NFL, but all the sports, NFL, NBA, PGA, MMA, NHL. If you're not playing today, there is no NBA. You can get in on playing DFS. That is, you can get in on the action with NHL here. We've got projections, everything with it. Go ahead.
We need to get that Keith Craps guy to come to the Waste Management with us when we go to the casino on Saturday night. We need that guy throwing the dice for us. There's no way with the last name Craps you're not going to be able to throw some mean dice.
Yeah, and then Nick says that these defenses last night was just I said this in the slate plan on the site. Like, I don't love it either, but I said if you're going to play against Zach Wilson, it goes one way or the other. And I was in on both sides of it, but the lineups that did better were the ones with the defense in it. But if you guys want to check it out, everything that we have you covered for is listed here. You just go to join now, go to the bottom, have a coupon, type in DEGN75. It'll activate the coupon for 10% off. You can check out everything on the site up here for free. James, I'll go back to this last one then. Anything else you have on the Seattle-Washington game? If not, the last one, someone was talking earlier about the Dallas defense. 4,400, but the points that they can put up on this spot, I mean, this is a tough one here. Let's talk about it. It's a division game. We got the Giants versus the Cowboys. What are you doing with this one?
I mean, the Giants with an 11-point total is the lowest I've ever seen on an NFL game. So it's just insane. I think that people are going to pay up for that defense. Look, if I had to bet money, I would guarantee you that the Dallas defense probably gets over 10 points, which isn't nothing, right? But to pay that much money for a defense, you really need them to probably be getting like 15 to 20 points, and because you're going to be sacrificing in other positions to do that, right? You're basically going from a $7,000 wide receiver down to like a $5,000 wide receiver to afford them. So you're going to need them to offset those points. So ask yourself, what's more likely? Would you rather have Dallas defense and a $5,000 receiver, or a punt defense and a $7,000 receiver? Only you're going to know the answer to that. But I'll just tell you, when it comes to defenses, I told you earlier, Tambo, I just don't play any over $3,200. It's anytime I've ever paid up, it'll do okay. It just never really pays the dividends that I want. That's just part of my process. I'm not trying to tell anybody else to do that. As far as the game goes, this just strikes me as a game where it's going to be 21-3 in the second quarter, and then the Cowboys are going to call off the Wolves. This does feel like a good get-right spot for Tony Pollard. Maybe they let him rush a couple touchdowns in, let him get there in the first half, and then he's probably benched the whole second half because they're so safely ahead. The problem is the Dallas guys are really priced up with Pollard, with CeeDee Lamb, with Dak, that there's no way I'm playing those guys, as I don't see any chance in hell that the Giants push this to a four-quarter game.
Yeah, it's they're almost 17-point favorites. So if you got the money and can get to Dallas D, I get it. But like you said earlier, you don't have to. Pollard might be able to do it. We've been waiting for Pollard forever, and this would finally be where he picks up. I just pulled up the DVP just to make fun of it. Like, obviously, again, it's the spot. This is what everyone's been saying, though. Like, even last week was not a good spot for Pollard. Finally, going against Philly is extremely tough. I think Philly is number one. Let's just double check this just to see. Yeah, Philly is the best against the run. And then you look at something like the Giants, who we're playing against here this week. Finally, he's starting to get some good matchups. And Nick, this is a hilarious one. Is Danny DeVito? No, he's 4'10". So Harmon would tower over Danny DeVito. I'm not sure how about DeVito for the Giants. Let's see if we can find him. We got time. If you guys have any questions, we're making good time on this one. Throw them in the chat. Anything else you want to know? Strategy, process, obviously. That's what we want to talk about, not picks and plays. So hit us up if you have any of that. But DeVito, Tommy DeVito, is 6'2". So he would just own all these guys. So that's to note for the Giants quarterback. But what about this one? What about, would you go to the backup for Dallas if you think they're going to be up as much as they are? He is priced at 4,300 on this slate.
So here's the thing, and I feel strongly, once again, this is part of my process. I think everybody should have their own process with their own rules and things that they follow. But for me on main slate, I just don't get cute at running back. I don't do that. Well, if this plays out exactly this way, I could get some value in this third string back. I just don't do that. I take volume and certainty at running backs on main slate. Now, it's showdown where like so few things need to go right for that to happen. I'm way more open to it, right? If this were a showdown game, I think Dowd would be a crazy good play, a very sneaky play that would work out in a narrative that would make sense. But on a main slate, when I have so many other running back options, I'm not even giving that a second of consideration. But once again, that's my process. Doesn't need to be yours.
Yeah, Scary Creation says they got 37 the last time they played. Dallas D seems to score more than every other defense. I get it. It's expensive, but they could easily see 20 plus. Definitely a possibility. Like I said, so if you go there, I get it. But
if you're running cheap stacks, right? Like if you're a filthy bastard and you want to run that Tyler Heineke stack with me or Levi stacks, well, you probably will have enough money to get up to a $4,400 defense. But if you're wanting to go run, if you want to go run a more expensive stack, like a a Dak stack or something like that, or a Trevor Lawrence stack, you're going to really struggle to get a $4,400 defense in there.
And the thing is, the only thing that makes it interesting, I'm going to have to agree now a little bit, just thinking out loud. That's why I love doing these first looks and we talk through it. Well, if you're not doing it with the Dak stack, very likely, you could onslaught it, but then you need a lot of things to go perfect because you need Dak to hit with the guys you have with it and the defense to do the work. But if you want the defense to score big, it likely takes a possession away, brings them back out, all that. It hurts Dak's time on the field. So I get leaning away from that, unless it's smaller field. Like I did it with Cleveland last week, but it was all price dependent. The other thing is if you go to like Joe Burrow stacks, who would be the next in line that we talked about as sort of a higher price stack. Well, it's not. If Chase is out, you're playing Burrow with T. Higgins, with Irwin or Irv Smith or something like that. I mean, like, I don't know. Maybe you will have the money by the end of the week. So I don't actually hate it if you end up there. We did see it last week get there with that Houston Tampa Bay stack. That's how it got there. I believe Utica's winning lineup had Cleveland in it, right? Like it was all because it had Noah Brown, it had Schultz, it had everybody.
I don't even think he had a Buccaneers run back. I don't believe. I think he just had
Rachaad White.
Oh, did he? Okay, well that makes sense, right? Because you probably needed Rachaad White to win the Millie. I only glanced at it. I don't have it up, but I
I'm
know
pulling
that
it up right now just because we have time and who cares. If, like you said, if you guys have more questions or anything you want to throw in the chat, we'll get to them. We got about 10 minutes left from what we normally do. Utica had in his winning lineup, it was, if this thing would load, he did have the Cleveland D. So he had Stroud with Dell, Brown, Schultz, the run back with Rashad White. He had Bijan, Lamb, and Jacobs with the Cleveland D and left $200 on the table. So either way, if you can get to it, like Scary Creations was saying, I definitely think it's a possibility. So could see that. Dable has been very leery to let DeVito throw it all. There's probably a reason to that. Keaton Mitchell, I'm not chasing that. Obviously, it's good if he gets there, but he's not going to show up on anywhere but the optimal last week. And obviously, we're trying to get to that, but you need too much else to go right. To me,
that's
work.
Just another reminder of how much I don't like playing Ravens running backs. Like, I just don't like to try to guess that.
That's what I'm saying. You also have to guess, like, you still have Edwards, Justice Hill, Mitchell. Like, there's other guys there that it could be. So I'm not trying to get too cute when it comes to that. I understand what he's saying, but it's not for me. So I wouldn't be going with that. What else do we got here? Nick said he didn't even know we have that on the site. Like, yeah, that's one note too. We do have this, but this is really basic, and there's actually reasons to be against this in some cases. We've talked about it in the past where this is just pretty standard. It's nice, and as the season goes on, you start to see who's better. Like, obviously, these are the worst against, so you could take your quarterbacks against this. We see some basic stuff out there. People throw it together, and they just show matchups of who's playing who and who has better matchups. This is where you get it from, just to build the very basics of it and find out and sort it. You can make something like that, but we go a step above. You can go to the advanced data, better viewed on desktop. Good thing I'm on one. And it still gets wide, but just to show it, we've got the full legend. So you can do DraftKings points allowed, FanDuel points allowed, passing touchdowns allowed, interceptions allowed, all these different categories, quarterback pressure, sacks by the defense, and it's all rated out. And again, very easy to use where you can just sort by the team. Obviously, it's the opposite because Cleveland is really good against everything. So it's just to kind of show you guys how you look at this. But yeah, just another tool with it. And then we've got the stack rankings as well. I'm not sure if we updated them just yet. It is only Tuesday, so I think it's from last week still. We can use this.
On those stack rankings, are you factoring in how good their matchup is against the team? Like, I just saw old Will Levis is playing against the team that gives up the most points to quarterbacks. Is that factored into the stack rankings?
No, so this is it is kind of, because that's factored in through our projections, which are proprietary, and using some of that's built into it, obviously. But what this does is just values out. So that's why you see, like, for example, you see Deshaun Watson, but there's a secondary version of this Deshaun Watson stack that was not as good value by playing Amari and somebody else. And again, you can still make your decisions based off this. We built a lineup on the show the other day, and it was like, if you went to the Stroud stuff, it only scored 202. I say only because like 250 won the millie, but like you could still build a single entry where you're like, okay, I'll play these guys. If I'm going with the Stroud passing attack, maybe I'll play Ramondre. I'll play Amari Cooper from this stack. I'll play, I'm not playing Kamara, so I'll play Olave or anything like that. And then obviously Noah Brown and Schultz. Like, this stack showed up as the best value for this side. So you could definitely get there with that. Baker was down the board. So you would say, okay, maybe I'll play Rashad White. Aiden O'Connell was down the board. I'll play Jacobs. You can just look at this and build your lineup self. But this is a really strong tool that I think a lot of people are missing out on if you don't have it. So again, go over to SHIPIT Nation, check that out. There's some questions that popped up here, James. I'll hit you with it. Do you think Houston gets too steamed up? I feel like the recency bias gods will be out there. I mean, we talked about that one a little bit earlier. Do you have any further takes after seeing the whole slate now?
Yeah, I think I still think they'll be relatively popular. They're not going to be runaway chalk, but I think you'll see Stroud in that 6 to 9% range, and I think you'll see all of his pass catchers probably come in low double digits, just because, first of all, it's not the first time we've seen it, and second of all, it's fresh in everybody's mind, and they are in a game that has a very high total.
Yeah, I agree. This one, joining late, pay up or pay down stacks this week. Right now, it looks like pretty much everything is paid down, because even if you have like a Joe Burrow stack, you're probably it's probably ending up being Higgins with one of Irwin or Irv Smith or Boyd or something like that. So realistically, if you're the way you're asking it, we do have money to spend for sure. DeVito was taking deep shots to Hyatt in quad coverage, not the brightest bulb out there. Yeah, I mean, that'll throw some interceptions, so you'll want to keep an eye. That's part of the Dallas defense conversation and why they're expensive. Caddy says, serious question, will Levis have the pressure of knowing Tannehill is close to returning and thrive and lock in a starting position, or do the opposite and try too hard? probably valid, but I think it's a coin flip, because that's what we say all the time. Like, when it's almost like Geno Smith and Lamar, two of their best running games this season were when they were without their O-line. All the talk was, well, they have no O-line, they're going to suck, they're not going to be able to do anything. It was the opposite. They were either going to get crushed or scramble for 1 million yards. And what happened? They scrambled for 1 million yards and had good games. Do you have any other take on this, or how do you think this plays out?
Yeah, I'm not too worried about that narrative. Tannehill sucks. I think that the Titans are smart enough to realize that they might have something special here in old Levi's.
Yeah, Doug, another good question here. I think this is slate dependent, because he's not running until he is. By the way, he still was running last game. I think he had over 65 on the ground or something. It's just a matter of who runs it in once we get down there. He's not getting the tush push or the brotherly shove that Jalen Hurts is getting. So just to mention that, I think it's definitely an opportunity to go to him. But like we said, in this game, a division game, a battle, it's going to be really tough to imagine for me. We'll see how things shake out. But at that price, I don't see myself getting there, just being honest, early on in this week. Ben asks, what is it that generally decides whether you want to go cheap, expensive, the amount of value guys, low, or the quarterback upside in a matchup? What's your thoughts on that one?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, I look at, like, what are the expensive options I'm trying to get access to this week, right? And if there's a bunch of expensive guys, there's A.J. Brown, there's C.D. Lamb in a shootout game, and I want to get those guys in my lineup, well, I'm going to need to save some money somewhere, and I have just found that part of my process is I like to save that money with my stacks, because I know I'm not going to be punting at running back, and so if I can get a cheap stack in there that allows me to get to those expensive dudes that I want to get to, that's what ultimately allows me to decide it. If there's no expensive guys on the slate that I'm really dying to get to, well, then I don't mind running those more medium cost or higher cost stacks, because I don't need to save money to get to those high price one-offs or correlations.
Yeah, and I think it's definitely slate dependent. I mentioned earlier, like, this is part of the SHIPIT Nation membership, and it's from last week. We'll update it once we get the initial projections in there this afternoon. But just to note, I let this help decide it too. Like, last week, it was clear there was a lot of good value stacks that you could go to. Sam Howell got like 22 points. Watson got almost 20. Mac Jones was okay. I think he threw touchdowns to both these guys, or Demario Douglas had like 12 points, but Hunter Henry caught a touchdown. They didn't get there, but it was one thing was for certain, was this game was definitely a spot to go to, and you were going to want that. And look what happened in the afternoon. It actually ended up being all 4 of these that were really good spots. Carr's still 17. Like, some of these missed, but I'll let this dictate some, and then the rest of the slate decide. If you end up getting really good injury spots where guys are cheap, that still you're getting number ones or great matchups and all that, I'll let that dictate it out. One thing I suggest to people sometimes is listen, do your own thing. We want you to create your own process, but a lot of people start with the quarterback. And I get that. Like, that's, you make your pool and then those builds out. But if you're doing a hand build, a 1 to 3 max, something like that, try and find plays that you like, and then tell yourself a story with what makes sense in the end. Like, who are the running backs I like? Okay. Running back chalk is usually better for the first part. So you plug it in. They check these boxes. They're like, okay, they're at home. They're the favorite. The matchup's good, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, I'm going to plug them in. Now you might see like a little secondary correlation that makes sense. You get it. Then you start looking at the end, what quarterback fills this out best, and you might just land on it. You might land on the nuts. You might have like a secondary stack of 2 receivers, and you land on the quarterback with a third receiver that makes a 3-1 stack fit perfectly. That's when you want to feel good about your build, and you know that your process is moving you in the right direction. I just say that that's one piece of advice I would give, is don't always start at the quarterback. Use this as an exercise to try and work this out backwards, and then see where you land, and then start doing your 2v2s on quarterback option and an option, not necessarily stacked with them, to see where you land and what makes sense with the lineup. It looks good. Oftentimes you can find something that makes sense. Keeps telling us here, Sean keeps mentioning it's the nuts. They just shut down the Bills. Mixon is the nuts. We'll see. Definitely think it's an opportunity here. Good matchup for sure. Like that idea. Starting to play in more expensive single entry contests. They seem to be a little sharper. Do I need to adjust the process? Here's a good one for you, James. You talk about this all the time. I think sticking to the single entries, great idea. Talk to him a little bit about going up in stakes, though. Obviously, you get the one upside piece of the smaller field, but you also typically will have a higher cash line because it is better players in the higher dollar. Doesn't always work out that way, but just saying it, in a single entry, typically you're getting better lineups in it, and the cash line is higher. So it would say you have to put up a little bit better score. Give them some thoughts on that.
2 big thoughts. First of all, if you're not used to playing at those stakes, what you just naturally do is you inherently go more conservative. When you, let's say you're a guy that normally plays the $5 single entry, and for whatever reason you're jumping up to the $100 single entry, what a normal person does is their butthole puckers and they make very conservative lineups. They don't make the same lineups they would have made that they were making in the $5, right? I'm guilty of this too. When I used to do PGA and I got my first couple big hits in a $5 tournament, well, now I'm playing $100, $200 single entries, and I start saying, well, I can't play that guy in a $200 single entry. Well, yeah, you can. If you play him in your $5 single entry, you can play him in your $200 single entry. And you got to quit thinking about like changing the way that you don't change your process simply because you're going up in stakes. That would be like my first big thought. The other big one is you got to know that whenever the price of a contest goes up, so does the chalk, right? The chalk is almost always more chalky in the higher buy-in contest. So if there's somebody that's really chalky or a game that's really chalky on that slate and you're comfortable fading it, don't fade it just to be a reckless asshole, but you're like, I'm not buying this game like everybody else is, well, then that's all the more reason to fade that game because you're going to get mega leverage on that, and that could be the difference between you doing it. And yes, I go down in flames all the time in my 153 maxes, my $200 single entries, because I get that stuff wrong. But I'm just trying to play to be right on these a few times a year and have that leverage on the field to go win the GPP, because I'm only playing those higher level GPPs to win. I don't give a shit about 17th place. Correct.
And the saying, it's cliche as it gets, but scared money don't make money, definitely applies in DFS because you hear it all the time, right? You just gave the opposite of this advice, and I agree with you wholeheartedly, and I'll say it, like, it's not for the faint of heart, but that was the comment on Sunday when it came to Singletary. And it was Singletary and Pop Douglas. And if you played those two, if you just went down from Kamara to Barkley or from the chalky Patriots defense to the Rams or something like that, you could flip those two and play Noah Brown and Ramondre Stevenson. The same games, flip the spots of New England. And not in the same game, but I'm saying New England, instead of Pop Douglas, you're going up and playing the running back. For Houston, instead of Singletary, you're playing Noah Brown. And people say, oh, I'm only doing that in like my $20 Millie Maker, though. I can't do that for this big tournament. You needed it. You literally needed it for the big tournament for the Noah Brown play. You didn't need Ramondre, but I'm saying you just can't say, I'll only trust the Noah Brown thing in the the large field stuff. I want to play it safer in the other stuff. Somebody is out there like me or like James or like other great players. They're not playing it safe, and you're competing against them. So you need to be playing on that same level or get out of the more expensive tournaments where people are doing that. That's the key. So definitely loved your explanation on that. I mean, this is definitely just a possibility of if this, then that. Yes, anybody that's there, you can play if Drake London's out that you think you feel comfortable with. That's where you make your own picks and plays. I think that's a definite good question. This, I want to hit on quickly. I know we're going over, but don't care. Stop looking for magic numbers and magic plays and magic buttons and player pool sizes and all these factors. Like literally, you can win with the chalkiest lineup in the world. If it's built differently, you can win with what people would call an over-leveraged lineup and get there still. You can win with a 95-man pool in golf DFS. You can win with an 18-man pool. Stop looking for magic settings. It's not a shot at you, Jeffrey. It's to everybody. That question gets asked a ton, and it's not the case. Like you look for a couple guys that are a little under-owned, like a little less owned. You're going to be different. Build your lineup a little bit differently. Use Noah Brown instead of Collins. Example. Like it doesn't matter. Like this is just, people spend too much time on this. You do want to have something that's not complete chalk, but it also, again, is another question depends on what you're in. In the King of the Beach play-in last week, you can get away with a lot of chalk and still get there. In the $20 Millie Maker, you probably don't want 5, 6, 7 chalk pieces that are going to be huge. But then what if you put them all together? My guy Hoop won the Millie Maker last year in week 4 by jamming all the chalk. But here's the thing. Everybody was playing a couple chalk pieces and then getting different elsewhere. He overstacked it. Look what Utica just did and overstacked Tampa Bay Houston. It's like you can still do it. And then that brought in pieces from the game that were a little bit lower owned. So definitely agree. Definitely think that's something that you need to make note of when you're looking into your stuff. But anything else from you, James, before we get out of here? If not, you can talk a little bit more about degen75.com and then we'll get out of here.
I would tell you guys, if you've never tried PGA, just come try it out. I know it's the swing season, but it's going to be here in January before you know it. I have my stream tomorrow night at Wednesday. Come check out my college football show on Friday, College Football DFS. If you ever feel like NFL is a constant kick in the nuts or PGA is a constant kick in the nuts, just know college football is a million times easier. Check that out. And, of course, I do my show the Showdown show for NFL on Mondays and Thursdays at noon, and my stream Saturday night at 7 where I give away tickets for the Millionaire Maker to build with me. So that's all I got. Check it out.
Yeah, great show, man. Always fun doing this with you. As always, you guys can go over there, Go to degen75.com, use promo code SHIPIT to get 10% off. Check out James and all he's got to offer. Get in his Discord as well, or you can go to shipitnation.com/degen75. Use the promo code SHIPIT that way. Appreciate all the support, everybody in chat, all the questions. Hopefully this was helpful. Hit that like button on the way out. Hit the subscribe. For James, for myself, ToeTagginTambo. Let's ship it.